We are through the first third of the season, and boy, did that go fast. Week 3 gave us some unexpected surprises that will be sure to turn the playoff projections upside down. I am your host, Kyle Kampmeyer. Now let's recap Week 3 right now.
Need a fresh look for your home? Neff Paints, based in Warren, Illinois, is the local expert in interior and exterior painting, staining, and power washing. Serving Galena, Dubuque, Lake Carroll, Apple Canyon Lake, Lena, and beyond, Neff Paints uses premium products for lasting quality. Contact Skylar at 815-541-7338 for a free estimate and let your home shine inside and out.
West Carroll continues to impress people from around the state as they jumped out to a 3-0 start while outscoring opponents 175-22. One would be remiss in stating they haven't played anyone yet, as some critics have stated. Each of the Thunder's opponents have played top-ranked teams in Polo and Milledgeville, and the Thunder have put up similar scores against both teams. While it may be a little early to be all in on West Carroll, they certainly have taken the state by storm, with many watching what they do. Week 5 will be their best litmus test reading when they play host to Milledgeville. Polo pitched their second consecutive shutout, and as I stated last week, the Marcos are on cruise control until the Week 6 Battle of the Blacktop with Milledgeville. Orangeville took a beating on the chin to Milledgeville on Saturday, down 50-0 at the half. The bright spot has been the play of sophomore QB Hayden Schofield. The Broncos have the size with some speed, but they need to find a little more grit in their play. They need to win 5 of their next 6 games to ensure a playoff spot. But with upstart West Carroll brimming with confidence and excellent play, they need to win these next 3 ahead of that Week 7 matchup in Orangeville. Milledgeville cruised to another big win as they've put up an I-8FA leading 208 points through the first 3 games. Another easy contest awaits ahead of back-to-back weeks to find out where the missiles stand with West Carroll and Polo. At this point, they look to be the odds-on favorite for the North Crown. River Ridge has faced 3 consecutive playoff hopefuls in as many weeks. The schedule gets a little softer moving forward, with the exception of a Week 8 matchup against Milledgeville. This young Wildcat team can find some life and surge towards a potential playoff spot, and it has to start at home this week with Orangeville. Amboy is no stranger to wins, as they have extended their win streak to 16 games now. The Clippers are right where they need to be going through the next 3 weeks of potential playoff teams, and it starts this week with the first of 2 regular season matchups against Bushnell, Prairie City. In the NUIC action, Du-Pec wasted no time with Dakota, jumping out to a 34-0 halftime lead en route to a 46-0 win. They return home for the next 2 weeks to play some tough games ahead of their much-anticipated Week 6 matchup with Lena Winslow in Lena. Stockton gave Lena Winslow everything they could handle, but some mistakes in the second half of the game allowed the Panthers to put the Blackhawks away. What Stockton needs to know is that while they are 1-2 and on the outside looking in on the playoff picture at this moment, they continue to raise eyebrows around the NUIC and other parts of the state. While going through the NUIC is never easy, it is safe to say that the Blackhawks have exited the toughest part of their schedule. Galena pulled off one of the biggest surprises as they turned a 12-point deficit into a 1-point win over regular state power in Forreston. The last time the Pirates beat Forreston came in Week 2 back in 2002 with a 7-0 win. The Forreston Cardinals find themselves with an uphill battle, as 4 of their next 6 opponents have winning records. This includes 2 tough matchups with Stockton and Morrison, both teams sitting at 1-2 and still more than capable of being playoff teams themselves. It starts this week in the Route 72 rivalry with EPC. The Wildcats pulled off a big win over Fulton. It wasn't that critics didn't think EPC could upset Fulton, but the way they did it with a blowout 46-22 win was the surprise. That 1-2 punch of Draven Zier and Jackson Kemple punched their way through the Steamer defense for over 370 yards rushing combined on the ground. They host Forreston at home in the rivalry game. Things don't get easier for Dakota. The Indians have been shut out in every game so far, getting outscored 133-0. They get to host number 2 ranked Galena Winslow this week, a team they last beat in the 2011 playoffs. After that, they get back-to-back road trips to Fulton and Morrison before returning home against Galena. Fulton has been hit with the injury bug, and it hasn't played out well for them over the past 2 weeks. They face another tall task this week with Stockton, a team that shares the same record but has turned the heads of many around the state. The back half of the schedule gets easier for the Steamers, but wins are becoming a premium. The Steamers last missed the playoffs in 2015. Morrison found themselves back in the win column with a 31-14 win over Class 6A Galesburg. Ray Reevy has been the back leading the way for the Mustangs, and if they can get Brady Anderson and Rylan Alvarado loose, this Mustang attack can be very dangerous for a lot of teams to scheme against. They get another tough game with Du-Pec this week. We will break down the Week 4 matchups and then look into the teams with the highest playoff outlook in both the NUIC, IFA, and a sneak look around the state. Starting in IFA, we are going to take a look at Amboy as they travel to Bushnell to play Bushnell Prairie City. The Clippers enter this game with a 3-0 record while BPC enters at 2-1. Amboy picked up another big game from Josh McKendry as he rushed for 165 yards and 2 touchdowns on the night. Braden Klein rushed for over 10 yards a carry as he also picked up 2 touchdowns himself. The Clippers will get a stiffer test this week against BPC as the Spartans made the playoffs a year ago. This IFA West Division is quickly identifying itself as arguably the toughest division in the state now, with both teams from last year's state championship game in it, along with the 2022 state champions in West Central also making a home here. To date, the most comparable game between these two teams is West Prairie. Amboy took a 12-point halftime lead and turned it into a 44-point win 2 weeks ago, while BPC walked out a 28-point win last week. The Clippers are favored, but BPC will try to give the number 1 ranked Clippers a run for their money. Polo hits the road to Ashton Franklin Center as the Marcos enter this game at 3-0 and the Raiders enter this game at 0-3. Polo continues to thrash yards with Noah Dewey and JT Stevenson. Gus Mumford has stepped into the QB role, providing a great option attack with the ability to run and pass. The Marcos will have no problem taking down AFC, as this game will be over quickly for Polo. Orangeville and River Ridge square off in a battle of winless teams as both teams enter this game 0-3. River Ridge will play host to the Broncos on Friday night as both teams have the opportunity to get the first win under their belts to have a more favorable schedule ahead of them. However, a loss here for either team really jeopardizes the opportunity for them to make the playoffs. Orangeville has been relying on a heavy dose of Hayden Schofield, while River Ridge relies on Damon Dittmer to run their offense. Both these QBs will look to have big games, but the team with the better defense will be the team to come out on top in Week 4. West Carroll hits the road to Alden Hebron, where they will take their 3-0 record and play the Little Giants, who enter the game at 2-1. West Carroll faces off with their first opponent with a winning record. The Little Giants haven't favored well in IFA action since 2019, but find themselves on the positive side of the win column. West Carroll had not won a game since 2019 entering this year, and they have wreaked havoc, scoring 175 points, second most in the IFA after 3 weeks behind divisional foe Milledgeville. West Carroll is getting a lot of work from Rafe Pickard-Shinkin, Connor Townsend, and Aiden Buchholz. The passing game is led by Winter Harrington, with key targets in Roger LeBourne and Richard Budamilia. The Thunder get a chance to get to 4-0 before that Week 5 matchup with Milledgeville. Speaking of Milledgeville, the Missiles will play host to Christian Life. Milledgeville enters this game at 3-0, while Christian Life enters this game at 1-2. The Missiles have a defensive front three that could rival Amboy of last year, with the likes of Dalton Adamek and Carter Livingood anchoring the line, much like Brennan Blade and Quinn Luffelman did last season for Amboy. One of the most underlying stories of the Missile defense is the play of linebacker Spencer Nye. Built low to the ground, with a mix of size and speed, you'll know you've been hit when 46 puts a lick on you. Offensively, freshman QB Kyson Francis has stepped up for the injured Evan Shank, and he looks quite comfortable running the offense. He was able to connect on 5 touchdown passes this past week. The Missiles still bring a great mix of run to pass in their offense, utilizing that speed and getting to the open spaces or running up the gut and hitting the second level. Either way, you have to plan to attack the Missiles from different angles, making them a hard opponent for even the best teams in IFA.
This portion of our broadcast is brought to you by Diedrich Epoxy Flooring. Serving northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin, Diedrich Epoxy is the source for all of your epoxy needs. Give Diedrich Epoxy Flooring a call today at 815-239-1158 for your free estimate.
The first game we're going to talk about in the NUIC is that of a former rivalry between Lena Winslow and Dakota. Lena Winslow enters this game at 3-0 as Dakota enters this game at 0-3. As Carrie would say, this is a rivalry between us. Lena Winslow grad, Dakota grad. But it's hard to say when it's a rivalry when it's been a long time since one team's beat the other. However, the Panther train keeps rolling, and while it isn't at the clip we have seen over recent years, one thing remains constant. When you have a program that has seen success, they continue to develop the players to play at a higher level through commitment and dedication to the process. Lena Winslow should cruise over the next 2 weeks in that highly anticipated Game of the Year with Du-Pec in Week 6. Dakota hasn't scored a point yet and haven't recorded many first downs on the season. One step at a time for an Indian team low in numbers and in the shift for the Indians. Each week they have opened up great on the first series, but cannot keep that level of play going. They need to find a way to stay in this game. Stockton hits the road to take on Fulton as both teams enter this game at 1-2. This game features 2 teams with 2 losses, but both have a different trajectory. Stockton has found life in the run game with the power of Mark Detweiler coupled with the speed of Carter Blair. Eli Larson provides a great target in the passing game, but his ability to help steal off the edge blocking in the run game has been crucial for the Blackhawks. Fulton has been hit with injuries, slashing into their depth. Dom Kramer continues to lead the rushing attack, but Skylar Crooks has picked up some workload. The passing game has had some deficiencies with the loss of Landon Liu, but Jacob Hausengay and Braden Myers are picking up the slack. This one will be a slugfest as Fulton looks to plug gaps and Stockton has to defend both pass and run with a dual threat QB. Galena is going to play host to a team out of Wisconsin as Fennimore comes to town with their 2-2 record to take on the Pirates, who sit at 2-1. Galena put themselves into a good position with an upset of Forreston last week. Now, they must continue that trend against a Fennimore team that went 3-6 last year while finishing 1-4 in their conference play. The Golden Eagles have won just 2 conference titles, both coming back in 2006 and 2008. The Pirates continue to find their offensive success with a mixture of pass plays between Owen Hafel and Roman Romer, while picking up rushing yardage from Miles Schumacher. He has been a big contribution in the receiving game as well, as the Pirates continue to find ways to get the ball in the hands of their playmakers. That will need to continue to happen for Galena to get the win ahead of a big NUIC game with Du-Pec in Week 5. Galena will come in as a 3-touchdown favorite in this game with Fennimore. Morrison hits the road to take on Du-Pec as the Rivermen enter this game with a perfect 3-0 mark, and Morrison comes in at 1-2. The Rivermen went on the road last week and watched Cooper Hoffman throw for 169 yards, rushed for 64 yards, and account for 3 touchdowns on the night. Justin Anderson and Dermot Dolan picked up big games, while Brody Black caught 3 passes for 140 yards and a touchdown. Ray Reevy led the Mustang attack yet again last week as he rushed for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns on the night. Rylan Alvarado picked up a touchdown run, while Brady Anderson and Levi Milder also helped in the run game. The Mustangs will need to look at attacking between the tackles and get on the edge to keep a skilled Du-Pec team on their heels.
Our 11-man game of the week is brought to you by Best Realty. Best Realty has been helping Northern Illinois tackle their real estate needs since 1990. Whether you're buying or selling, in the market for residential, commercial, or acreage, they'll help you get the best deal. Call the Best Realty team at 815-248-3408 or visit them online at bestrealtyproperties.com.
Our Best Realty game of the week takes us back to the past year for the second time in a row as EPC plays host to Forreston in the Route 72 rivalry. EPC enters this game at 2-1, while Forreston comes in with a record of 1-2. This rivalry game has some lust to it once again. Evan Bettner has been the workhorse for this Cardinal team this season, picking up 374 yards rushing while averaging over 8 yards per carry. Dane Setterstrom has provided a good secondary option, with Cohen Kirshner and Mickey Probst getting the pickup carries. EPC combats that with Draven Zier and Jackson Kemple. When you add Adam Allwender to the mix, you're creating some havoc in the backfield trying to find out who is going to attack you with the ball. This is a big game for both programs heading into mid-season, especially with the playoff picture lurking coming up. Here's a look at some of the teams making their way towards the playoffs. Lena Winslow, the number 2 ranked team in the state, is 3-0 and should have no problem collecting 5 wins on the schedule. They still show they are the team to beat in the NUIC. The Du-Pec Rivermen are 3-0 and like last year got off to a slow and sloppy start. They are starting to put things together hitting the midway point and should be fine hitting the playoffs barring injuries. EPC sits at 2-1, but still have some tough teams ahead over the next 5 weeks. They have 2 wins in the bag, but will need to steal a win away from 3 teams that sit currently at 1-2. While the Galena Pirates are 2-1, their schedule still looms large with conference favorites in Lena Winslow and Du-Pec ahead. You can't count on a Stockton team in a rivalry game either, as the Blackhawks have the fortitude to be a contender. The Pirates can't be content with where they're at currently. The Stockton Blackhawks may very well be the best 1-2 team in Class 1A, but they went through the toughest part of their schedule and gave both conference frontrunners a run for their money. Now, they have the easiest path to finish out the next 6 weeks. They must stay on the attack, and if they do, don't be surprised to see these guys win out. Morrison continues the welcome to the NUIC gauntlet as they travel to Du-Pec. But after this week, the schedule looks more favorable for Morrison to make a run at the playoffs. Don't stay quiet on these guys. They are better than what their record indicates. The Fulton Steamers are in for another dogfight this week, but upcoming games show the Steamers probably have the second easiest remaining schedule in the NUIC. They need to get healthy, and while they won't get back to 100% this year, they can still make a run for the playoffs. On the IFA side of things, Milledgeville, Polo, and Amboy are going to be locks for the playoffs. The top 3 ranked teams will face very few challenges provided they continue to play as they have through the first 3 weeks of the season. West Carroll is off to a 3-0 start, and 2 more wins should come at ease with their schedule. We will see how they truly stack up as games with both Milledgeville and Polo loom large on the schedule. Orangeville sits at 0-3 and could be one of the few winless teams in IFA with a chance to come all the way back to make the playoffs. 4 of the next 5 games are definitely winnable, while the game with West Carroll could be one worth the watch. At 4-5, they could still make the playoffs, but then it comes down to playoff points, which will be a hard number to reach to get them in with the division, comparing the schedules in other divisions. For me, the Broncos need to hit 5 wins in order to make Week 10. Looking around the state in Class 1A, one of the most interesting things could see that bubble in Central Illinois flip ends, as Leroy could find their way into the North bracket. They currently sit at 3-0 with a projection to run the table and finish the regular season at 9-0. Last season, they lost in the second round to Althoff Catholic, who currently sits as the number 1 ranked team in state this season. Some projections show Calhoun slipping up, but in reality, they should be looking at the number 1 AP ranked team as the favorite. 2 teams unbeaten on their schedule remain, and neither stack up with Calhoun this year. We are beginning to see some projections raise the class cutoff, as 4-win teams making the playoffs were originally projected to be between 12 to 15 teams, and that has since been cut down to 6. That means we're going to see teams like Deer Creek, Mackinac, Arthur Lovington, and Bloomington Central Catholic potentially make their way down into that 1A field. Teams on the outside looking in, don't sleep on Hope Academy. The Eagles played 2 non-conference games against bigger schools. Now in conference play, their toughest challenge remaining is against 4A ranked Wheaton Academy here in Week 4. Another familiar face is Anawan Wethersfield. Setbacks from injury have limited the Titans, but that will only be temporary as the next 3 weeks see a much more favorable schedule. The back third of the season will determine if the Titans make the dance. In Class 2A, one of the most notable moves is defending state champ Wilmington showing up in the playoff picture. While not a surprise, and a lot of things can still twist that around, the Wildcats are poised for a title run and become the immediate favorite in Class 2A should they drop in. Quincy Notre Dame sits at 2-1 right now, but if the Raiders can pick up some wins in the Central State 8 Conference, the Raiders will be a huge task to take down in the South bracket of 2A. Maroa Forsyth looks like a heavy hitter, and with tight end Grant Smith just committing to Illinois, the Trojans are still producing the talent we have seen out of them over the past 18 seasons. Class 3A has turned into a 2-horse race, with whoever finishes as the state runner-up really being the team that should be no higher than 3rd. Byron and Montini Catholic are the face of Class 3A. However, both reside in the North bracket, which means one will likely make their home around the quarterfinals. The likes of former 4A state champs in Chicago Phillips and Richmond Burton lurk now in Class 3A as well, but neither team is at the level they once were at. Some teams you could see making runs are the likes of Princeton, St. Joseph Ogden, Tolono Unity, and Greenville. There really isn't a threat from the outside looking in, but former 4A runner-up Murfreesboro is also on that bubble of dropping into the Class 3A field. In the IAFA, there sure are a lot of teams looking to make runs, but teams to watch are the usual suspects in Amboy, Milledgeville, Polo, and Milford-Cisna Park. Upstarts in St. Anne and West Carroll are putting a little shock treatment on the field, while Pawnee looks to be a viable foe come playoff time as well. South Fork suffered a loss to Pawnee this past week, but they could still put up a fight as the season grows longer. And that gives you a quick look and insight into the playoff picture as we get ready to enter Week 4.
Our NUICfootball.com state rankings are presented by Leading Edge Fundraising. If you need to raise funds for new uniforms, tournament expenses, equipment, or more, look no further. Brandon Sharp at Leading Edge makes it easy for you and your team to have a fun and competitive way to raise funds for your program. Give Brandon a call today at 563-514-1647. Leading Edge Fundraising, your premier fundraising company.
Our NUICfootball.com state rankings for Week 4 look like this, starting in 8-man. At number 1 is Amboy at 3-0. Climbing their way up to number 2 are the Missiles of Milledgeville at 3-0. Dropping down one spot are the Polo Marcos, also at 3-0. Entering at number 4 is Martinsville, who is 3-0. Number 5 is Ridgewood. Number 6 sees Pawnee jump up to that spot as they move to 3-0. At number 7 is Milford-Cisna Park as they move up a couple spots with a 3-0 record. At number 8 is West Central as they remain undefeated at 3-0. At number 9 is Flanagan Cornell Woodland as they drop down after a loss and are sitting at 2-1. And entering the state rankings for the first time this year are the Thunder of West Carroll as they drop in at number 10 with a 3-0 record. Other teams receiving votes include South Fork at 2-1, Bushnell Prairie City at 2-1, South Beloit at 2-1, and St. Anne at 2-1. In Class 1A, Althoff Catholic takes over the number 1 spot as they enter this week with a 3-0 record. At number 2 is Lena Winslow at 3-0. Number 3 are the Warriors of Calhoun at 3-0. Entering at number 4 is Camp Point Central as they are 2-1. And at number 5 is Leroy at 3-0. Number 6 is Greenfield Northwestern at 3-0. At number 7, moving back into the top 10, is Hope Academy at 1-2 after their big win over Aurora Christian. Number 8 is Stark County at 3-0, and at number 9 is Aurora Christian as they drop down to that spot at 2-1. And entering the top 10 for the first time this year are the Newman Central Catholic Comets as they enter week 4 at 2-1. Other teams receiving votes are KC Westfield at 3-0, Rovo Williamsfield at 3-0, Gibson City Melvin Sibley at 3-0, and Rockford Lutheran at 2-1. In Class 2A, the number 1 ranked team remains the same. Maroa Forsyth is 3-0, followed by number 2 Farmington at 3-0. At number 3 are the Raiders of Quincy Notre Dame as they are 2-1. At number 4 is Rockridge at 2-1, and at number 5 is Bloomington Central Catholic at 2-1. Number 6 is Tri-Valley at 2-1. Number 7 is Chester as they move up a couple spots at 3-0. At number 8 is Johnston City, who also moved up at 3-0. And number 9 is Moments, who's moved up at 3-0. And entering the state rankings for the first time since 2018 are the EPC Wildcats at 2-1. Other teams receiving votes are Shelbyville, Chicago Christian, Pana, and Bismarck Henning, Rossville, Allen. In Class 3A, your number 1 team are the Byron Tigers at 3-0, and at number 2 is Montini Catholic at 2-1. Number 3 is Wilmington at 3-0. Number 4 is Princeton at 3-0, and number 5 is St. Joseph Ogden at 3-0. Seneca comes in at number 6 with a perfect 3-0 record. At number 7 is Williamsville at 2-1. Number 8 is Monmouth Roseville, who is 3-0. And at number 9 is Du-Pec at 3-0. And making their way into the top 10 for the first time this year with a big upset win over Bloomington Central Catholic last week, 22-21, is Paxton Buckley Loda as the Panthers sit at 3-0. Other teams receiving votes include Tolono Unity at 2-1, Piatone at 3-0, Eureka at 3-0, DuQuoin at 2-1, and Olympia at 3-0. Well, that gives you a preview of what we have looking ahead at Week 4. We recapped Week 3. We went through some of a quick jaunt through what the playoff picture looks like in both the NUIC, IAFA, along with some other mentioned teams around the state. And of course, you got to see what our NUICfootball.com state rankings look like as well. Week 4 is here. Once we get through this week, we're on the back half of the season. Boy, these 4 weeks have gone by fast. But it's the name of the game. It moves quickly. It always does. That's why, football is one of the greatest sports. You only get so many games, and you only got so much time to make things happen. And without the effort and the drive and the commitment, you're not going to see yourself playing very many games when October gets here. But we do have our playoff show ready to go. We will be doing our 8th annual NUICfootball.com playoff show on Saturday, October 26th at 6:30 p.m. We moved it up a half hour to give us an additional half hour of conversation so we can take a look at IFA, Class 1A through 3A, and talk about it in a little bit more depth with just a little bit more time before the brackets get released at 8 o'clock that night. We'll put out all the details on that as we get closer to that time frame. But in the meantime, enjoy week 4. The regular season is here. The playoff push continues. Get out to the field, root for your teams, and as always, root for the NUIC.